This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com, wearing the shirt of the Blood Hunter and Blaze today, two of the stars of the Forest of Fear match series that is up here on the Hannibal TV, and apparently people like it even in AEW because on the AEW Full Gear pay-per-view last night, Matt Hardy did a match in a forest with fiery lights similar to the Forest of Fear in the ring in the forest. So not only did AEW steal my Death Dealer name for that fat slob that I'm not even going to mention his name because he doesn't deserve to be mentioned on this channel, but now they're taking the Forest of Fear concept from the Hannibal TV. Smackdown on Friday night did a 0.65 rating, which is one of the best ratings they've done in a long time. After Raw this past Monday did a 0.48 rating, which was their fifth lowest rating in history. So Smackdown, of course, is on Fox, bigger network, and so forth. Earlier tonight, I did an interview with Scott Romer, who was the photographer for that infamous angle that Onita did with Invader #1, where they pretended Onita was stabbed by Invader like Bruiser Brody was stabbed by Invader. And it got such a terrible reaction that they ended up not doing the angle. There was rumors that if Invader came to Japan, he would be killed. So there's lots of stories from him. He worked in boxing. He tells stories that boxing promoters back before the internet, you could get away with this. Hard to find out people's backgrounds. They would bring in professional wrestlers such as Rip Rogers to fight real boxers, to give them better records before they would fight other trained boxers. So I hope to get that DDP interview next week. He's still hard to track down. I also did an interview with Chris Dickinson on Friday night. He recently fought John Moxley in the Bloodsport finale that aired. Josh Barnett, by the way, was victorious in his recent bare knuckle fight in Poland. And Dave LeDuc, who I interviewed not too long ago, won his Lithway fight in Wyoming last night, which was his first time doing Lithway in the United States. And that's a style of fighting where headbutting is allowed. Now, if you do it where it's known, I think in Burma, there is a 2-minute time period to revive a knocked out fighter. However, they didn't adapt that rule for the US, but nonetheless, David LeDuc was victorious in that fight. I've done 2 interviews with him. I've also trained with him a little bit. Sonny Ono, I've said this before, says he's the best pound per pound fighter in the world. So I'll get into some of your comments. Not a big news weekend in the world of professional wrestling. As far as NWA, Serena Deb, who recently beat Thunder Rosa, who I interviewed a couple weeks ago, defended her title successfully on the AEW pay-per-view last night. The same one where they copied the Forest of Fear. And remember, if you want to watch these UWN/NWA pay-per-views Tuesday nights, the affiliate link for those is in the description or at thehannibaltv.com. If you order one of them through my affiliate links, you're helping me out. They're only $7.99 or buy 4 for $23.99. And from what I understand, this December, the Blood Hunter, the guy whose shirt I'm wearing, managed by Kevin Sullivan, will be making his debut. As I drink my coffee here, getting ready to go for a run. Oh, by the way, thank you to John one of the fans of this channel, who is actually a paranormal investigator. I had the burial of my grandmother yesterday, and there was probably 50 to 60 pictures taken at the burial. And in approximately 8 of these pictures, there was orbs visible around me. And in one of the pictures in particular, there was a green orb. And I did post some of these pictures. I did post one of them. The one with the green orb is on my Devon Hannibal Nicholson Facebook and Twitter page. But the point is the camera lens was clean. The orbs did not appear in all of the pictures. And it's interesting that in the one picture, there's a strong green orb in the picture because it's my grandmother on my mother's side, and her last name was Greenwell. So I would just like to hope that she was with me. I mean, I did actually physically bury her casket. They had the bulldozer put the rest of the dirt on it, but I actually covered the casket in dirt. So it was a sad day, and I really loved her. She was the closest person in the world to me, and I'll miss her a lot. Steve says, nice for my update. Big trips, keeping it real, checking in. Matt says, yo, yo. Mike says he's missing Piper. She was knocking at my door a while ago, but my door is closed, and I didn't want to miss the stream. Tony Atlas interview was good, and how could I forget about that, Walter? All the tips, and I think we had somewhere around $130 in tips for that interview yesterday. They went to help out Tony Atlas above his compensation for the interview. And a lot of these older wrestlers are struggling right now with there not being many independent wrestling federations running, not being many autograph sessions running. So thank you for everyone that helped Tony out. And it was a great interview. He revealed he wasn't there for Rocky Johnson's funeral. He revealed he's not a fan of AEW booking. He talked about a lot of interesting stuff. It's very blunt. I really like him a lot. Robert Brown says, much love from Lafayette, Indiana, the home state of Scott Romer. Pueblo would like to see me team up with Davey Boy Smith Jr. in AEW or WWE. I am retired. I am fully retired. I am doing great as a commentator. And for all my haters that like to say, oh, you never made it as a wrestler, blah, 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 blah. I got more than double the views of Ring of Honor last month, and I'm 38 years old. Do you think my reporting career is going to be over anytime soon? I mean, I'm 25, 30 years younger than Jim Cornette. Imagine how popular I'm going to be in 25 or 30 years. I already have far more views on my channel than that washed up discriminatory has-been has. As Carlos says, that is amazing, and I thank you. But as far as my wrestling career, I've wrestled so many of my heroes. Nash, Sid, Abdullah Butcher was one of my heroes, Honky Tonk Man, Lanny Poffo. I've wrestled like Gangrel, Al Snow, so many stars over the years. Kevin Nash, Terry Funk. The list just goes on and on. Too Cold Scorpio. I'm not going to name them all again. Heidenreich, TJ Wilson, Davey Boy Smith Jr. I mean, I wrestled everyone I want to wrestle, other than maybe Hulk Hogan, who's beat up right now. Steve Austin retired before I got into the business. I don't care about wrestling any of these new guys. I mean, I would have loved to have wrestled Ric Flair, but my career is happily over, and I'm satisfied with what I accomplished, and I'm happy with being a reporter. Steve says AEW has stooped to WWE's level and has started ripping off other people's concepts. And by the way, the only reason, speaking of AEW, that I was willing to fight Cody Rhodes in his open challenge for the TNT title that they're throwing around, switching back and forth like it's nothing now. way to devalue a title, was because I would have beat him for the title. And he said it was an open challenge. I had Kevin Sullivan, Terry Funk, Billy Graham, who, by the way, I did beat Billy Graham in an arm wrestling match too. If you want to consider that part of my career, I did defeat him in an arm wrestling match. Conan, Bushwhacker Luke, who I've also wrestled, Savio Vega, I've also wrestled. But anyway, so many legends wanted to see me versus Cody Rhodes, and I would have beat him for the title. And there's nothing they could have done to prevent me from beating him for the title if it was on live TV. So that's why I wanted to do it, but he chickened out. So that's why I wanted to do it. Big Trips, his grandmother died back in the 90s when he was 13. I never really got along with my parents. I've gone several times, years without speaking to them. I was adopted. I felt that my parents that adopted me always treated my brother like the real son that he was. But my grandmother never treated me that way. And when I did finally meet my adoptive mom, who died at like 54, it was my sister, my like real sister, that had contacted me to tell me, hey, she's going to die soon. Maybe you should go meet her. So I only ever met her 3 or 4 times. But the truth is, I mean, she didn't want me. So my grandmother was the closest person in the world to me by far. Harris, thoughts on Eddie Kingston? I met him at the PCW Ultra show that I covered back in January, that I posted a match from on this channel and tons of interviews. And he was a fan of mine, so I can't say anything bad about him. Mike wants to see Stardust versus Blood Hunter. I mean, there's a guy that might be actually more violent than me. I do never see Cody taking a match like that. The Hannibal TV. And by the way, I'm pretty sure that Blaze, the Blood Hunter's manager, who, sorry, I'm going in the wrong direction. She could really kick the shit out of Brandy Rhodes. So that wouldn't be good. Nicholas wants me to face Cody Rhodes. Well, as I said, I wanted to. I pushed for it. He backed down. That was the only thing that was going to get me out of retirement. He claimed it was an open challenge, but he lost the title. Soon after, there was a buzz going about my challenge. And then he took a month off, came back, won the title, but has now dropped it again to the little guy, Darby Allin, last night. And as Scott Romer was saying, there's so many little guys right now in wrestling. There's a handful or so of big guys, but it's really, I would say, infested with these little gymnasts that just do choreographed stunts that looks just like choreographed stunts, looks like a dance. Doesn't look real. David says I would have actually killed Cody Rhodes. Slaughterhouse says the Forest of Fear was complete. Duke says, have I ever had any interactions with Ricky Banderas? I have wrestled Ricky Banderas probably over 100 times in Puerto Rico. There's an interview with him at that same PCW Ultra show where I was talking to Eddie Kingston. I saw Ricky Banderas. Him versus the Blood Hunter would be an incredible match. And I could see that happening. Matt R. wants to know where Blaze started. I don't know. Only probably Kevin Sullivan or the Blood Hunter could answer that. Robert Brown, what was my inspiration to get into wrestling? Pretty much when I saw that WrestleMania 5 feud between Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan, that made me fall in love with wrestling. I wanted to be a wrestler ever since I saw that as I don't even know if I was in grade 1 yet, but I started doing, there's pictures of me at 5 and 6 years old doing backyard wrestling matches. And they weren't hardcore style. We actually wrestled. And back in those days, it was really popular. And I remember there was no internet, there were video games, there was Nintendo, but not everyone had video games because they were expensive. And maybe I didn't live in the richest area, but all the kids would get together, even at recess, and everyone would be WWE wrestlers. And we would pretty much wrestle for real. And I actually credit that for helping me with amateur wrestling, because like when we were kids, we would basically do amateur wrestling, pretending to be WWE wrestlers. Steve says that most of the wrestlers today look like action figures. Cass says we need bigger than life characters in wrestling. Robert Brown, have I ever met Taz? No, I haven't. But he did commentate one of my WWE matches. Walter wants to see me interview Steve Austin. I have talked to him on the phone. I'm friends with his ex-wife. I'm friends with one of his daughters, but I don't know if he would ever let me do an interview with him. It wouldn't surprise me if maybe one day I'm on his podcast, but he isn't. He's pretty much just re-releasing old shows now. He hasn't released any new shows for a while. And he did recently. I've been mentioned on Austin's podcast 3 times. One of them was the Al Snow podcast he did, which he just re-released a few weeks ago. When was I adopted? Robert wants to know when I was 6 or 7 months old. Will I ever do a Ric Flair interview? Phil wants to know. Well, apparently Rick Bassman is friends with him, and he said he was going to ask for him. And don't forget to give my videos a thumbs up. It helps get them ranked and helps us get the 6 million plus views a month, beating out hugely funded competition. And by the way, every tip I get and everyone that goes to patreon.com/thehannibaltv pays $1.99 a month or buys one of the Great North Wrestling shirts, sweaters, hats, fanny packs. They're all helping fund this channel. I'm not a big corporation. I am one person, and your views help. Every little bit helps, and it helps me get those big interviews like Rob Van Dam, and there's others. I'm working on hopefully getting Kevin Nash soon, by the way. Bill Alfonso, I've already said. Eric Watts, I've already said. There's a lot of new ones coming. Plus, I'm doing the weekly United Wrestling Network pay-per-views. Michael enjoys the old school wrestler shoots. There's a lot of old school fans on this channel. Harris says Eddie Kingston is probably a fan of mine because every time I cut a promo or perform in the ring, it seems like a shoot. Fans miss that feeling. That is a feeling that is missing in today's wrestling. Was the Forest of Fear on pay-per-view? No, the matches are on YouTube, but AEW copied the concept in a Matt Hardy segment yesterday on pay-per-view. Big Trips will keep a shirt that says Ryback sucks. He'd buy that shirt. I mean, I just mentioned I had 6 million views last month. He had about 1 million, according to my analytics program, which is accurate. Big Trips is also an 80s fan. But I stay away from Ryback because I don't have any respect for him. I think I told you guys I've never followed him on Twitter. I never interacted with him in any way. And about a year ago, I get a random message. It shows up in my filtered messages on Twitter. And he just basically sends me a message saying, "You're blocked." Who messages somebody just to tell them that they're blocking you other than a complete and total loser who, by the way, Bellator, I would kick the shit out of that guy. Like, no question, would not even be pretty. I would actually enjoy beating the hell out of him if Bellator ever wants to book that. Beater Car tipped me $5, says thanks for all the great interviews. Well, I appreciate it. It's actually pretty nice out there. So I'm going to go out there and go for a run like right now. So thank you for all your tips. Thank you for all your viewers, and have a good Sunday night. Cry back. And everyone else that watches me, whether you love me or hate me, I don't care.